Sometimes growth doesn't feel like progress. It doesn't arrive with excitement or recognition. It often begins quietly, almost invisibly, deep beneath the surface of your daily life. You might not even realize it's happening at first. There's no clear signal, no sudden moment when you know you've changed. Instead, you start noticing subtle shifts, a pause before reacting, a desire for calm, a feeling that certain things no longer affect you the same way. You may not be able to explain it, but something inside feels different, steadier, more aware. Carl Jung believed that true growth starts in the unseen parts of ourselves, the places we rarely look at, yet are always shaping who we are. He taught that becoming the best version of yourself isn't about adding more to your life, but about bringing more of yourself into awareness. You don't grow by becoming someone new. You grow by discovering the person you've always been beneath the noise. At first, this process can feel confusing. You might think you're losing interest in things that used to excite you. You might notice yourself speaking less, listening more, and preferring moments of silence over constant stimulation. But what's really happening is that you're turning inward. You're beginning to understand yourself in a way that doesn't need validation or explanation. Jung often said that what we don't make conscious will continue to direct our lives. So when you start observing your own reactions, thoughts, and patterns, you begin to take back quiet control. You stop being pushed by impulses and start moving with intention. That's the beginning of transformation. Not loud, not dramatic, but deeply powerful. It's the moment you start to realize that understanding yourself changes everything: your decisions, your relationships, your peace of mind, even how you see the world. And that's what this journey is about. Not perfection, not constant positivity, but awareness. Because once you become aware, you can't go back. You start to notice who you're becoming, one small shift at a time. So if you've been feeling quieter, more thoughtful, or more detached from things that once drained you, know this: you're not falling behind. You're not losing your spark. You're evolving. Something powerful is beginning to move inside you, slowly, quietly, and with purpose. And if you recognize even a few of the signs ahead, it means that process is already underway. You're not just changing. You're becoming the best version of yourself. Sign number 1. You spend more time reflecting before reacting. You'll start to notice this one quietly, almost without realizing it. There's a small pause, a space, where you used to react instantly. Someone says something that once would have triggered you, and instead of answering right away, you stop. You take a breath. You think. You let the first wave of emotion settle before you decide how to respond. That pause is where sign 1 begins. It's subtle, but it means something is changing in the way your mind works. You're not just reacting anymore, you're observing yourself in real time. You can feel the difference between emotion and understanding, between reaction and response. Carl Jung often emphasized the power of awareness, the ability to notice what's happening within you, not just outside of you. He believed that this kind of self-observation is the first real step toward growth. When you can watch your own thoughts and feelings without being controlled by them, you've already entered a new stage of self-development. At first, this pause might even feel strange. You might think you're becoming quieter, or even less expressive. But in reality, you're becoming more conscious. You're not trying to suppress your emotions. You're learning to understand them before they take control. You begin to ask yourself gentle, honest questions. Why do I feel this way right now? Is my reaction helping, or just repeating an old pattern? Do I need to say something, or is silence enough? This kind of reflection isn't weakness, It's strength in disguise. You're shifting from being driven by impulse to being guided by insight. You start valuing peace over being right and clarity over speed. And that's how you know growth has begun. You're no longer the person who reacts to everything that happens. You're becoming the person who chooses what's worth your energy. That moment of reflection, however small it seems, is the first clear sign that you're evolving into the best version of yourself. Sign number 2. You start seeing patterns in your behavior. After you begin pausing before reacting, something new starts to happen. You begin to notice yourself, not just in single moments, but across time. You start seeing the patterns in your behavior, the loops you've been repeating without realizing it. Maybe you notice that certain situations always make you anxious, or that you withdraw when you feel misunderstood. You catch yourself responding in familiar ways, and for the first time, you understand why. It's as if you've stepped slightly outside of yourself, not to judge, but to observe. Carl Jung believed that growth begins when we bring what's unconscious into awareness. In other words, when you start to see the things that used to control you from the background, you begin to regain your power. What once felt automatic now becomes a choice. You might find yourself thinking, "I've done this before. I know this feeling. This time, I want to handle it differently." That awareness is transformation in progress. Quiet, but real. It's not about fixing everything at once. It's about recognizing that your reactions, habits, and emotions all have roots. And the moment you start tracing those roots back to their origin, you stop being ruled by them. Jung described this as a movement toward consciousness, the process of understanding yourself so deeply that your actions begin to align with who you truly are. You stop blaming circumstances and start focusing on how you respond to them. Seeing your patterns doesn't make life easier overnight, but it gives you something more important: clarity. And clarity is the foundation of change. When you begin to notice your own patterns, you've taken another quiet step forward. You're no longer living on autopilot. You're learning from yourself. And that awareness is a sure sign you're becoming the best version of who you are meant to be. Sign number 3. You feel comfortable being alone. After you start recognizing your own patterns, you naturally begin spending more time with yourself, not out of isolation or avoidance, but because solitude starts to feel calm, even necessary. Moments that once felt empty now feel peaceful. You stop needing constant noise or distraction to feel okay. Instead, you begin to appreciate quiet moments, sitting, thinking, reflecting. You start to realize that being alone doesn't mean being lonely. It means you're comfortable in your own presence. Carl Jung often emphasized that personal growth requires turning inward, not to escape the world, but to understand yourself apart from it. When you're always surrounded by others, it's easy to lose track of your own thoughts. But when you're alone, your mind becomes clear enough to hear what truly matters to you. At first, this change might surprise you. You may find yourself choosing stillness over activity, or time alone over social noise. You begin to value space, mental space, emotional space, time to breathe. You realize that you don't always need to explain yourself, seek approval, or fill the silence. In those quiet hours, you start to reconnect with your thoughts and emotions. You learn what restores you and what drains you. You start setting natural boundaries, not out of defensiveness, but out of understanding. This comfort with solitude is not a withdrawal from life. It's a preparation for deeper participation in it. You're learning to stand on your own ground, to draw stability from within instead of from what surrounds you. Jung believed that the process of becoming whole begins when we turn inward and meet ourselves honestly. That's what's happening here. You're meeting yourself, possibly for the first time, without judgment. When being alone no longer feels heavy, but peaceful, it's a sign that something inside has settled. You've built a quiet strength that doesn't depend on constant validation, and in that silence, you begin to hear something new, your own voice, clear and calm. That's when you know you're not just spending time alone. You're building a deeper relationship with who you are becoming. Sign number 4. You accept your imperfections without excuses. Once you've grown comfortable being alone, you start to see yourself with new honesty. You no longer need to pretend to be flawless or hide your mistakes. You begin to face your imperfections with calm awareness instead of denial or shame. You might notice yourself saying, "Yes, I did that," or "I could have handled that better," and feeling peace instead of guilt. That's the beginning of self-acceptance. You realize that growth doesn't come from defending who you are, but from understanding who you are. Carl Jung often said that real maturity begins when we integrate the parts of ourselves we once rejected. He believed that wholeness isn't about perfection, it's about recognizing every side of yourself, the light and the shadow, and learning to live with both. In this stage, you stop needing to prove your worth. You no longer measure yourself against others or chase approval to feel complete. You begin to see mistakes as information, not as something that defines you, but as something that refines you. You might even start noticing a quiet kindness in how you talk to yourself. Where you once judged, you now understand. Where you once criticized, you now reflect. This doesn't mean you stop trying to improve. It means your motivation shifts. You grow not to fix yourself, but to understand yourself. You see that progress comes from acceptance, not resistance. Jung described this as an integration, the process of bringing all parts of the self into awareness so they can work together rather than against each other. When you stop hiding from your flaws, they lose their power over you. And when you can admit your limits without feeling small, you open the door to genuine strength. Acceptance doesn't make you passive, it makes you real. It means you've stopped fighting against yourself and started working with yourself. That quiet self-honesty is one of the clearest signs of growth. Because when you can look at who you are, completely, truthfully, and still feel peace, you're no longer chasing the idea of a better self. You're becoming it. Sign number 5. You become more selective with your energy. After you learn to accept yourself, something shifts in how you use your time and attention. You start noticing how easily energy can be wasted on endless explanations, arguments, or things that no longer align with who you're becoming. So you begin to choose more carefully where you place your focus. You stop feeling the need to prove yourself to everyone. You realize that understanding yourself is more important than being understood by others. You no longer chase validation. You protect your peace. Carl Jung often spoke about individuation, the process of becoming a whole, authentic person. Part of that journey is learning to separate what's truly yours from what belongs to others, their expectations, their opinions, their noise. When you begin to honor that boundary, you start living with intention. You may notice yourself declining certain invitations, speaking less in certain conversations, or stepping back from unnecessary conflict. At first, it might feel unfamiliar, maybe even distant, but what you're really doing is conserving your inner strength. You're learning that silence doesn't mean weakness, and distance doesn't mean indifference. It means you're aligning your energy with what genuinely matters. You begin to invest more in things that bring meaning rather than attention. You value depth over distraction, quality over quantity, peace over drama. And you start to feel lighter, not because life is easier, but because you're no longer carrying everything that isn't yours. Jung believed that self-awareness naturally leads to clearer boundaries. When you understand yourself, you instinctively know what to allow in and what to let go of. You stop reacting to everything around you and begin responding to what truly serves your growth. This selectiveness isn't selfish, it's clarity. You're no longer leaking energy into every passing situation. You've learned to direct it, to protect it, to use it with purpose. And when that happens, your life begins to feel quieter, but also stronger, clearer, more intentional. That's how you know you're becoming the best version of yourself. You're not trying to control everything outside of you anymore. You're mastering what's within. Sign number 6. You find meaning in challenges. As you grow more selective with your energy, your perspective on difficulty begins to change. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this teaching me?" Struggles that once felt unfair now appear as opportunities for insight and strength. You begin to realize that challenges don't only test you, they reveal you. They show you how far you've come, how much you can endure, and how deeply you understand yourself. You no longer run from discomfort. You observe it, work through it, and allow it to shape you. Carl Jung often said that what we resist persists, meaning that avoiding pain only gives it more power. He believed that genuine growth happens when we face difficulty with awareness, not avoidance. In that process, your mindset shifts from reaction to reflection. Instead of being consumed by frustration, you start asking questions like, "What can I learn from this? How is this experience shaping my character? What strength is this situation trying to build in me?" This new outlook doesn't make life easier, but it makes it clearer. You understand that difficulty is not an interruption in your path. It is part of the path. Each challenge becomes a kind of mirror, reflecting areas where you're still learning to grow. You might still feel pain or disappointment, but now there's a quiet awareness beneath it, a recognition that something valuable is happening inside you. Instead of being defeated by hardship, you begin to draw power from it. Jung believed that confronting our difficulties is essential to becoming whole. He saw struggle not as a punishment, but as a necessary process, one that brings hidden parts of ourselves into light. So when life feels uncertain or heavy, you no longer see it as a sign that you're lost. You see it as proof that you're moving deeper into your own development. You start to notice growth in places you never expected. Patience, endurance, perspective, peace. And that's how you know this sign is alive in you. You stop waiting for life to be easy and start using life as your teacher. Every challenge becomes a quiet marker of transformation, guiding you toward the person you were meant to become. Sign number 7. You feel a quiet sense of readiness. After you've learned to find meaning in challenges, something subtle but powerful begins to settle within you. You start to feel a quiet readiness, not a rush, not excitement, but calm confidence. You may not know exactly what's coming next, yet you sense that you're prepared for it. There's a new steadiness in the way you move through life. You no longer need to force outcomes or control every detail. You trust your growth, your process, and your ability to handle what unfolds. Carl Jung often described this stage as moving toward wholeness, a place where your inner and outer selves begin to align. You stop living only through reaction or fear and start responding with awareness and purpose. It's not that everything suddenly makes sense, but you begin to feel at peace with not knowing everything. This readiness feels different from motivation or ambition. It's quieter, more grounded. You don't need to announce it, you simply feel it. You recognize that all the moments of reflection, solitude, and self-honesty have built a foundation inside you. Now you can stand firmly on it. You start letting go of the idea that life must always be planned or perfect. Instead, you begin to sense that you are capable of adapting, that no matter what comes, you'll meet it with awareness and strength. You carry less fear of uncertainty because you've learned that clarity grows from within, not from circumstances. Jung believed that this inner harmony, this feeling of being centered and self-aware, is what allows a person to live authentically. When your actions begin to match your understanding and your choices align with your values, you no longer need constant reassurance. You simply trust the path you're walking. So when you start to feel calm, even in moments of uncertainty, recognize it for what it is: readiness. It's the quiet knowing that you've been preparing for this, not through control, but through understanding. And that's how you know you're becoming the best version of yourself, because you've stopped trying to become someone else. You're finally ready to live as who you are. Growth rarely announces itself. It doesn't come with clear signs or sudden victories. More often, it arrives quietly, through reflection, awareness, and the calm that follows understanding. Carl Jung believed that true development comes from turning inward, from bringing what's hidden into light. And that's exactly what these 7 signs reveal: a deeper connection to yourself. You reflect before reacting. You recognize your patterns. You feel peace in solitude. You accept your flaws without excuses. You protect your energy. You find meaning in difficulty. And finally, you feel ready, steady, centered, and quietly confident. None of these changes happen overnight. They unfold slowly, often without you realizing it. But if even one of these signs feels familiar, it means something powerful is already happening inside you. You're no longer chasing an image of who you think you should be. You're beginning to live as who you truly are. This isn't the end of your growth. It's the beginning of a new level of awareness. And the best part is, you don't need to force it. Just keep noticing, reflecting, and allowing yourself to become. With each stage of growth, the noise around you matters less, and your inner voice grows clearer. You stop rushing to prove your worth, because you already know it. You no longer chase constant change. You allow it to happen naturally, through small, consistent moments of understanding. And one day you look back and realize the version of you that used to struggle, resist, and search so hard has softened. Not because life got easier, but because you learned how to meet it with awareness instead of fear.